It's already been a year. Remember this storm? No? Well, sit down and let me tell you a story. A story of hype turned to heartbreak. A story of how a blizzard that once shook the earth lost its chill. But first, let's just touch on a little bit of history. Picture this. The year is 2019 and BlizzCon had just begun. Expansions for some games such as World of Warcraft and Hearthstone were announced. Alongside the long-anticipated Diablo 4 was also announced. But the spectacle for a lot of players that year was the sequel announcement for Overwatch, Overwatch 2.
Monsieur, does this mean Overwatch is back?
No.
A long time requested story mode version of the game where the age where we need to wait a year or more for a cinematic to drop, or when a short story or comic would randomly be released come Overwatch 2 would be no more. Now we were promised a fully fledged start to finish story mode brought alongside a cinematic introducing it, and a decked out talent tree showcasing multiple different abilities, like Reinhardt Shatter going in a 360-degree circle rather than its 90-degree cone. And Mace Crowd Freeze ability turning into a rolling ice ball instead. Really just some fun stuff. Fans, such as myself, were, of course, hyped as hell because we're getting a story mode plus new abilities in the form of a talent tree. What's not to love? And now, all we need to do was wait.
How do you see vaccines
and hoping
the
and
entire
dying to see your landing.
And wait, we did, because fast forward 3 years later, after a serious content drought of quite literally nothing being added, save for the most, in my opinion, ass skins being added, and a heinous lawsuit, Blizzard went under, making Mappa staff management look like saints. Okay, that's a lie, but you get what I'm saying. Overwatch fans with nothing but a single thread of hope and trust that this game is gonna come out before their grandchildren are born finally got it. Finally, the wait was over and Overwatch 2 was released. Players could finally rejoice in enjoyment of the story mode. What? Oh, right. So, PvE mode was delayed. So what we did get was Overwatch 1, but with a fancy new paint job, a bigger focus on microtransactions, Battle Pass slop, and 3 new heroes. One of which they totally don't heavily cater to or anything because they know people will buy.
Me he dado cuenta ahora de que ya no estoy hablando de verdad, solo llenando el silencio con sonido. Digo una cosa, pero las palabras que escapan no son mías.
If I had a nickel every time Blizzard ditched a promise they made about Overwatch 2, I'd have like 7 or so nickels. But anyways, after all that, we jump to August 10th, 2023. Finally, PvE comes out. Well, I mean, a fraction of it came out in the form of 3 missions released annually, costing 20 Canadian dollars. Many were rightfully angry about this because it would mean that every potential future expansion would have also costed $20 and presumably released annually had the first one been successful. It wasn't. With that money for 3 years or 9 missions of an incomplete story, I could just buy one, let's say, Elden Ring DLC, where I can then proceed to get my ass beats for like several hundred hours. Or, better yet, I can get 3 and 1/6 copies of Balatro. Pricing aside, to touch on the story missions, they were less than desirable. The talent tree getting scrapped contributed a whole lot to that, as it was one of the main driving points to PvE itself. That's another nickel. And the story missions weren't very replayable, and the story itself was kind of To the story's defense, it is meant to be more of an introduction and setting up big parts for future events, but we know they won't come to pass, at least not in this format. But let's fast forward a year past that year's mess of stuff, or lack thereof. Let's jump to now, August.
April 2025.
About a year ago, Blizzard announced the cancellation of PvE and basically threw years of hard work and promises out the window. And later, after all the uproar died down, while I was spending my precious seconds in life playing Destiny 2, I thought, man, this AI? Definitely something, alright. And then something something Overwatch PvE. And then I started to make this video.
Welcome to hell, motherfucker!
So, I queued up, in hopes of finding a lobby full of players such as myself wanting to go through the missions with 3 other teammates. But, to my total and absolute shock, no one was playing. How did I know this? Well, after queuing the lowest difficulty for the first mission over and over, I could not find a single player playing PvE. And would just get the bots over and over again. And sure, while I could have just sucked it up and played with the bots on normal, hard, or even expert, if I was feeling insane enough, I definitely could have. Except for the fact that the AI teammates are the most goo goo gaga, extra chromosome having, brain dead, logic challenge, captcha failing, bunch of My fault. Lost my cool there for a second. Won't happen again. For one, they will not leave your sight. I lied. And unlike most players where they can react to something as it's happening, the bots have the same thinking process of a goldfish, which in itself is an insult to goldfish intelligence. I know, I've seen the Michael Reeves video too. But after trial and error of queuing and finding nothing but bots, I noticed something. Legendary doesn't have bots. You see, when you queue into a normal to expert difficulty PvE mission, after 40 or 50 seconds pass, the game automatically places you in a lobby with bots to fill up the queue. But Legendary doesn't follow these rules. Instead, it waits until you have 4, just 4, players to start the game mode. So, naturally me being my curious and not at all self-respecting self, I queued up to see if I can get to a game on Legendary difficulty and see just how long it takes to get into said game. While I won't show you the total length it took in the recording because I'd like to spare your sanity, I was in queue for a little over an hour to get into a single Legendary lobby, of which I'm not entirely convinced that the 3 that joined me weren't just a 3-stack, but who gives a shit, right? Mind you though, just because I got into a game did not necessarily mean I was bound to complete it. It just guarantees I got into a lobby. As for how it went, yeah, we beat it. For the most part, it went pretty smooth sailing, but around the end in the first turret guy, we had a lot of close calls, but still managed to beat it. But had we failed, we would have had to re-queue again, and good lord, I do not hate myself that much. But anyways, I tried to do the same for the other missions, and I kid you not, I could not find a single soul in there. It was nothing but me, dust, and the occasional rolling tumbleweed. On prime time gaming, mind you. So after all that, I thought, maybe I'm hating too much. Not about Kiriko, for her I'll gladly stay hating. But more so, maybe I was being too harsh on the previous bot teammates. Maybe they can actually get the job done. So, with hope in my heart, and no other choice really, because let's face it, not a damn soul is playing this, I set out and tried to complete the first PvE missions on expert mode with just me and the bots.
Oh, let's break it! In London! Me bomba!
You just... To my surprise, considering the past experience of Star Watch 2's and his inability to contribute anything meaningful to the point where you're better off without him, it actually went pretty well, all things considered. Sure, there were a few small hiccups, but it was nothing that ruined the game or anything. So, since it went so well, I thought, well, let's see how it is without me being a healer. Surely that's why it was so easy. Surely. Because since I was Lucio, and like I mentioned earlier, the AI sticks to you like glue, they are almost in your aura 100% of the time. So this time, I swapped the Tracer, since she has a primarily zip around enemy blind spot ability. And it would mean that the AI would have to follow me into the danger.
Let's try something else.
Oh, Reinhardt? As you can see, this went pretty easily as well. Everyone was doing well, except for Lucio. To which, remember when I mentioned the AI sticks to you like crazy? Well, apparently that only applies when you do not want them to. The worst part is that our healer, mind you, decided he didn't feel like sticking with us, and the AI Genji kept dying because of it, since he has zero self-sustain abilities unlike Tracer or Mei, who can self-heal, not including their passive healing. Another smaller thing, but the chargers kept getting stuck. It's more of a mild inconvenience, but it's still an inconvenience.
Make the charger into the relay!
Yeah, I'd like to. Beyond that, it was alright. Then I even went again to test it as Reinhardt, who I would say felt a lot better to play than the DPS character since there are so many ledges on this map, so it makes just charging at an enemy and sending them flying off the map really easy. Of course, Lucio was still being a little special guy with not a single thought that DJ.
One time in my life I felt that. What was my purpose?
But all in all, it still went pretty smooth sailing, and my hate for these AIs very, very slowly started to dwindle. If I had to give a recommendation for any of the two people that want to play this, I'd recommend playing Lucio, because it is so much easier if you heal your team yourself rather than letting them do it for you. If you don't want to go healer and just feel like going apeshit, I'd recommend going Reinhardt instead. It makes life a lot easier when you just push everything off the map. Now, with 1 out of the 3 missions out of the way, things were looking optimistic. And then I stepped into Toronto. And no. Oh shit.
That'll turn you.
It's Hammy.
I gotta say, you people are incredible.
No problem.
So yeah, this was a special kind of hell. The big problem was the first part, and partially the stalkers, but especially the first part. Because if you aren't playing as someone with high damage or low cooldown knockback, you might as well just leave. Because in the many games I've played, your AI teammates normally focus all of the enemies in the back, despite wherever you may be positioned. And if you are unfortunate enough to remember this mission, there is a boat that you have to defend from incoming slicers that come from the left and right. Now let's put 2 and 2 together. Defend the boat, plus AI teammates fighting enemies in the back, plus slicers coming from the left and right, equals... But seriously, these slicers are actually mind-numbingly annoying. The fact there are so many of them and your allies only leave you to deal with them means your only options are A. Block their damage on the bow and then take him out, B. Take him out fast enough and pray to your god they don't do enough damage, or C. Use low cooldown knockback characters and just shove them straight off the edge. Either way, this makes some characters straight up obsolete in this mission, and is why I didn't go through more runs with different characters, making this part of the mission the hardest part of it all, bar none. Once you manage to get past those and the boat leaves, it's the same old takeout stuff, move along, but anytime there is a stalker, you better get back to praying again, because some deity is the only thing that's gonna save your ass, because your teammates definitely will not. To elaborate, normally the way you break out of a stalker's grab is if one of your teammates uses a crowd control ability on it, i.e. Winston jump, Lucio boost, Riggs whip shot, etc, etc. But not these teammates, no. They will all stare at you deadpan while the stalker slices you with her weave. This for some parts is tedious, yes, but manageable nonetheless, because there aren't too many enemies around that the AI themselves can't handle, for the most part. So they should be able to pick you up easily. But should you get to any of the parts where you have to defend what is essentially Omnic, Saul Goodman, and Claire, and you or your healer dies, that's a wrap. Because at that point, either the large number of enemies are going to swarm the remainder of your team, or your team is going to be so focused on clearing those enemies, shooting at them, that they forget about the subjugators attacking the civilians, causing you to lose the mission. And side note, there are strange bugs that go on during this mission, like teammates just teleporting around, teammates just not moving and staying as far away from the team as possible, or this.
Null sector ahead, on the tracks.
How could you tell? But bugs aside, something I did appreciate them doing in this mission is that if you aren't playing a character that can cross the gap in the subway terminal to create a bridge for your team, the AI Sojourn that is guaranteed to be in the game, being that this is her mission and all, will cross the bridge to do it for you. How? Oh, okay, they can do it. But you know, bars on the floor. Another thing I really liked, this railing. I get on, I slide down, I go up, repeat. This alone bumps up my rating of the map. That being said, character-wise, I can only really recommend playing Cassidy in this mission, so you can do the heavy lifting on clearing stuff, so your team can actually focus on the important stuff, like taking out this robo-bit.
Nice lady.
Safe to say, I don't want to touch this mission again after today, and I hope the final mission, at least compared to the last one, isn't as difficult. Okay!
Up with me!
Shit. I hate this game, I hate this game, I hate this game, I hate this game, I hate I'll spare the play-by-play and just say, I got my ass beat no matter which character I chose. Bastion, amazing damage. Can get out of the stalker grab by himself, making him amazing for the final phase of the mission. Can push things off the map if placed his grenade correctly, however, no defense or self-sustain. Death, Torbjorn. Really good damage and ult. Decent defense with his overload ability, but can't really push enemies off the edge for the easy kill. Cooldown heavy, turret gets cooked upon being born, decent pick. Still gonna die. Brigitte is more or less the same. Good self-sustain, good defense with a shield, can boop things off the edge at the right angle at a decent range, but her mace might as well be a squeaky toy with the amount of damage it does. Also death. And finally Reinhardt. Good damage, great defense with his shield, can push multiple things off the map at once without dying if you know the time to cancel correctly, crazy good ultimate when backed into a corner. He is an almost perfect pick. The only problem being is that he simply exists on this mission. Yeah. Death. Failure. If it wasn't abundantly clear already, this mission is tough as shit. At least for me. It would be somewhat easier if we had real players, but alas, no. Just me. And these guys. Who have no idea what it means to run out of the glowing red circle, indicating immediate death. Who also, as I previously mentioned, stuck to you like glue. Oh yeah, apart from Bastion. So if you were playing Torbjorn, the two melee characters would stick with you and use their one ranged ability each if far away from enemies, while Bastion, the ranged character, would charge headfirst into battle. Meaning your only option as Torbjorn is to charge with Bastion to hopefully make it out in one piece at the end. 99% of the time, you won't. This is arguably even worse at the end if you're playing as Reinhardt, since the best way to take out the boss enemies like the stalkers or the artilleries is, as I mentioned before, to charge them off the edge to take them out quickly. The problem with that is that apart from Leroy Jenkins over here, the other two bots will follow you the moment you step out of their proverbial peripheral vision, meaning the splicers and the bomb kamikaze guys, whose name I can't remember, will get free reign on the turret you're supposed to be defending in the middle, causing you to fail. The cannon part in question being the worst part of the mission. What I mean by that is on previous encounters in this mission, if my team was dying, I could find a spot to hide and revive them. Sure, it's tedious and takes a long time, but it would guarantee we wouldn't wipe, and I don't have to do this mission all over again. But since in the final part you're trying to actively stop enemies from doing damage to something, i.e. the turret, and if anyone that played Uprising when that was a thing remembers, the defending the payload part that shares the same mechanic as this part of the mission is the worst part of that mission on higher level difficulties, solely because of how swarmed you get while trying to hold the payload's position. And keep in mind, that was with players. Now imagine that with bots. Yeah, screw that. Let me say it again because I've been pretty negative throughout the video. This mission is pretty fun going through it normally, but on expert with a bunch of literal bots, and the turrets being the only thing I can rely on as consistent help. That is, until they get blown up and doom myself, my teams, and my monitor's fate because these little shits don't have any form of independence or have too much independence. So, after all of that, how did I actually manage to beat that? That's the neat part. I didn't. After actual hours of trying, I just couldn't. And I'm gonna be honest for a moment, it's legitimately probably a skill issue since I haven't played this game in a hot minute, but man, it is hard to try to juggle your teammates' AI functionality and stop the enemies from tugging on your cannon. But anyways, after resigning from that hellhole of a mission, making that sadly only 2 out of the 3 missions completed on Expert. But I mean, hey, at least that's more than half. Anyways, after playing Resistance, Liberation, and Ironclad, all on Expert with the bots, I can safely say with 100% certainty, yeah, screw this. Screw these bots, screw the enemies, screw Kiriko, screw everything. This was not worth attempting. Do not play with these bots unless you really want that Brigitte skin or just really have nothing better to do. But that only really applies for Expert. Hard and normal, who gives a shit? Just play it normally. But for the latter of the 2 options, here's a list of stuff I'd say is better than, well, this. Again, if you really have nothing better to do. Like, anything at all. But over-dramatized robot hate aside, did I complete all 3 of the missions on Expert with the bots? No. Could I? Probably. But I'd really rather not spend a second more listening to Reinhardt constantly repeat
The fountain, the fountain, the fountain. Brilliant work, Dormion.
So after all that time I won't be getting back, how's the expansion doing a year later? Terrible. I mean, that much was clear. I don't know why I did. Mental pause for that. Sure, there were moments of fun and glimpses of what could have been a fantastic addition to the Overwatch universe, but overall, it's hard not to feel let down. The AI, while not needing to reach Rainworld level of complexity, could have been a lot better. Map is stuck, Winston's spinning. What's going on? Claire is over there, and now they're both spinning. As for the story, shit, I mean, it was there. It would have been nice to at least have some of the talent tree available, and we do see the lost talents being shown in different game modes being released, but alas, its absence and the lack of missions made everything about this get stale very fast, which is one of the probably dozen reasons why people don't want to play this a year later. In the end, Blizzard missed the mark heavily on execution, that's 9 nickels, leading to the cancellation of the PvE game mode. If you're thinking about buying this in 2025 for some reason, why? Don't stop. Instead, save your money for something that delivers on its promises and respects your time and investment. Or just buy the next new $20 recolor. Again, your money, your choice. But all in all, the PvE expansion had potential, but fell short in way too many ways to be worth any amount of money in 2025. Let alone $20. Unless you really want that Vigilante Sojourn skin, I guess. But for something positive, in that even in this colossal flop of whatever you can really call all this, Overwatch PvP still thrives. And despite me pretty much drunkenly at the bar screaming about the good old days, the game as of right now, and a year after PvE, is in a more decent state. Marvel Rivals is out and will hopefully make Blizzard kick into high gear because God knows they can use the competition. Hey, me from the future here. So this is a whole season late, but Blizzard did step up their game for Season 15 because in essence, we did get Overwatch 1 back, well, with the classic game mode and loot boxes and whatnot. Last season, we also got perks, which are kind of like the talent tree talents, in a way. And yes, I did check after the recent update. They didn't add them to the PvE expansion. And now, with Season 16 out, we have Stadium, which, you know, straight up just gave us some of the talents we saw in the showcase way back when, alongside some new abilities, making for some definitely unique and interesting gameplay. But probably leaving out a few talents like Reinhardt's 360-degree shatter, because imagine trying to balance this for PvP. And the game as of recent has been, begrudgingly, I admit, pretty fun. Onward we ride! Onward we ride! And Season 16 literally just came out, which according to Frogger is hopefully going to be the best season of Overwatch 2. I'm assuming he says that because of the stadium and the perks, but you know, given that it is Frogger, it could It could also be just because we now have magical girl skins now. But, you know, given there's no Lucio one, that's probably not the case. Him saying this, assuming he's talking about Stadium, could also be in reference to anything further down the line being added this season. But we don't know. Either way, I trust quirky white dude's opinion enough to have faith in what he says. So, crazy story, right? But even with Blizzard getting some of the players' goodwill back with the recent changes, I have a proposition that will potentially gain even more players back. Hear me out. Mama Hong. Add Mama Hong. Mama Hong will fix the game. Mama Hong will on second thought, this game feels good. You will add Mama Hong.